Okay, at this point, you should realize this is possible. You can get a job as a Python developer, even if you're a beginner. If you work hard enough and learn Python, you can get a job. But the key part here is that you have to work hard and you have to constantly keep learning and improving your skills. You have to build your own projects so that you can present yourself as a valuable software developer from whom the companies would benefit from. They're just not going to hire someone without any experience, any proof that they have any experience. So you have to prove yourself, and the only way you can prove yourself if you don't have any professional experience is by building your own projects, and those projects have to be very well designed projects. They have to see that you know your stuff. I can tell you from my own experience that I used to think the same thing. Can I, as a beginner, actually get a job in an industry? So we're going to talk about this topic in this video. And if you really think about what kind of fields you could work at or work in, you should think about Python Junior opportunities, you should think about data analysis, you should think about web development, and maybe automation. So it really depends what you start with. I can tell you from my own experience, I started with automation. I used to use Selenium to automate things. Actually, one of my first jobs was as an intern. I used to do quality assurance and I used to write automation tests with Selenium. That's how I started. But later on, I switched to using Python and Django and then to actually build web development projects. But that's not something that you can start with. And if you're a complete beginner, you have to grow into becoming able to write automation tests with Python and Selenium, being able to build the Django backend with Python and other frameworks. It's not that easy to start with. So you have to be prepared to challenge yourself. It's not going to be easy. If you don't have any prior experience as a developer, as a Python developer, it's still possible to get a job, but it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be something that someone just gives you. It's not going to happen like that. You have to work for that, and you have to prove yourself that you have some kind of value that you can give to the company, and you can. Like, the easiest way to prove this to someone is by having your own projects. That's what I usually tell my students to do. They have to build their own projects. And when I first started out in this, I used to just build my own projects. I used to build Selenium projects. I used to build Django backend projects. That's how I started. That's the only way you will actually learn. So one of the first things that you need to have is you need solid fundamentals in Python. And another thing is you need real-world projects. And when I talk about real-world projects, you have to forget about calculator apps, because that's what everyone else is doing. That's what every junior is doing. And I have students coming to me and asking about calculator apps, and I tell them, just throw that shit away, because it's not gonna help you. Whoever is looking for a solid professional Python developer, they're not looking for people building calculator apps. They're looking for people who actually know how to build a real-world project. And what do I mean by real-world project? Well, let's say take, for example, an e-commerce website and build it from scratch. Can you do that? Can you actually build an e-commerce website from scratch? Well, that's a big challenge for someone who has never ever built anything from scratch. The basic stuff about Python, the fundamentals, everything you can learn just by Google searching everything. But you will get stuck once you get past to the basics. Once you will get to the point where you will be able to actually build some kind of features for the project, like let's say you're building your e-commerce website, and you have to build a sign-in endpoint or sign-in page. How would you do that? And this is where usually the beginners get stuck. Everything until you're actually building the features is easy to find online. You can find tutorials for that, and it's easy to build those things. You will have some blind spots, and you're not going to be able to tell where you have blind spots. As a beginner, you usually don't see those blind spots, so you won't be even be able to see what mistakes are you making and why are you being rejected by other companies. And this is the point where people usually give up. This is where you will give up. And this is where you should find mentors. You should find someone to learn from. I remember when I started, I got the opportunity to work on a web development project for like a year. And I kept working on that project, but I was mostly working alone. And I didn't have a lot of mentors to ask help for. And I was kind of in my own bubble. And I didn't realize that I'm making mistakes. And at that time, I actually thought that I'm a pretty good developer. I thought this is awesome, I'm making good progress. I still kept getting stuck, but I didn't know why. And this is where a lot of Python beginners get stuck. They don't know why they don't know why they're wasting so much time to build some kind of small project or small feature, or they get stuck on some kind of debugging issue. They don't know how to resolve it. I used to be in this position. I used to make these mistakes. And the only way to solve this is by having someone above you, higher, to tell you that you're making a mistake and tell you how to do it properly. I remember my first 2 years when I learned this, I actually managed to get to work with way more experienced developers than I used to be. So I had maybe 2 or 3 years of experience, and then I was learning from developers with 5 to 7 years of experience. And at that time I thought I know a lot of things and I can write code, but what ended up happening was when I created a pull request, they left a bunch of comments to my code. I kept getting comments from them, and I realized, well, I don't know that much. I still need to learn a lot of stuff. Basically, I took the opportunity and kept learning from them. I kept taking the comments from them, and yeah, that's how I got started. Okay, you learn some Python, you have some experience, but the next question after that is it really hard to get a job if you learn Python, if you already know the fundamentals? Is it hard to get a job? Well, the quick and short answer is no, it's not that hard, but there's still a lot of competition coming your way. You have to think about every junior or every guy around you who is also doing the same things that you're doing, building your calculator apps, useless calculator apps, building some useful projects. They're all trying to get a job and they are your competition. How are you going to be better than they are? What's your selling point to the company? Why would they hire you over the other guy? Have you thought about that? So you have to think about your competition. How are they going to be better than you, and how can you be better than they are? Also, yeah, it's possible to get a job once you learn the Python, but you have to think about your niche. One of the biggest things biggest mistakes that I made in the beginning was I kind of tried a lot of things, and then I only then decided what exactly I want to do. And my niche now is Python, Django. I'm not stuck with Django. I could work with other frameworks, but basically I'm working in backend. I'm working with REST API endpoints, and currently for the past 3.5 years I've been working in fintech industry. I used to do some other stuff outside of fintech industry, still with Python, but it wasn't as profitable as fintech industry. So if you seriously think about this as your career, I think you should try some things, try a lot of things, but then pick one niche and stick to it